Now, the International Day of Peace was established in 1981 by the United Nations General Assembly. 2 decades later, in 2001, the General Assembly unanimously voted to designate the day as a period of non-violence and ceasefire. Every September 21st, the United Nations invites all nations and people to honor a cessation of hostilities during the day and to otherwise commemorate the day through education and public awareness on issues related to peace. Now, this year's theme is End Racism, Build Peace. Today, we are glad to have in our studio Bash Amuneni, one of Nigeria's foremost performance poets. His poetry is laced in love, memory, and the subtleties of the human condition. He has performed poetry at various platforms, including the Kaduna Book and Arts Fest, Lagos Literary Fest, Lagos International Poetry Festival, Poetry Africa International Festival in Durban, South Africa, People's Journalism Prize for Africa 2019, and most recently, Slameroon International Festival, Cameroon. I could go on and on about the amazing work that he's done, but we are about to witness it as he's here to do a special performance for you today on International Day of Peace. I leave you in the hands of Bash Amuneni.
Freedom exists in small places, close to home. She once spoke through the broken jaws of Jim Crow's law. She spoke through the Holocaust. She spoke of child labor during the Industrial Revolution. Freedom, like hope held in the eyes of a child in North Korea to someday welcome the world into his stead. His arms are open wide like flowers groomed at his backyard open patch. Freedom questions in those beads of tears down the cheeks of a mother holding the lifeless body of a son, another victim of hate, somewhere in Tripoli. In the firm grips of a beggar's bow in South Sudan, under the scorching sun, yet he says yes to his heart, yes to his rights, and yes to life. Freedom speaks in black and white, in red or burnt amber, Messiah or the royalty, Buddha or the crescent, bending by the knee, plucking a chaplet, forehead to ground, saluting a deity in the Vatican, Buddha or city pub. In the cloak of our common humanity, freedom speaks to all of us. In the quiet resolution of the crust or straits of those with hope held behind bars, of the free with little rules, the street urchins, even the wolf on Wall Street, the adolescent girl owning her sexuality, or that individual seeking a public office. She speaks through the walls of Gulag. She was revetted at the bottom of a totem pole, Syria, Somalia, and Zimbabwe. Freedom walks the streets of Zimbabwe. She was peopled by a controlled resolve. She sounds like laughter shared by the paved curbs in Freetown, where she speaks in Creole. She is the voice and the exchange of beer by migrants in Sao Paulo. Freedom is me, freedom is you, freedom is us, freedom is peace, freedom is why we're here. Freedom speaks in black and white. Thank you.
Wow, that was such a beautiful performance, Bash Amunemi. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I mean, poetry is a way in which we tell stories, we tell our journey. And you've been able to link, different stories of what's happening in Sudan and Zambia and different parts of the world, and basically telling our history as well. What would you say? I mean, you've used so many words. Mm-hmm. In one sentence, if you could define what peace means to you, what would it be?
That's a serious question. So peace will be where the world is at a state of balance, where we understand our differences, where we know that racism shouldn't be a thing, So yeah, for me, peace will be being at peace as humans, with nature also, because we are in a state where we also talk about the conversation about the whole climate thing and all of that. So yeah, peace will be when the world is at a state of balance.
Right. It's great that you mentioned the climate, because we're having conversations about climate, United Nations, 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We have Goal 11 being climate change. There have been several things that the United Nations is looking to change and to impact in the world by 2030. Now, if I could ask you, what one thing could be, there was one thing you could change in the world, looking at the myriad of challenges that we have, what would be that one thing?
That would be, I think, world hunger.
And why did you choose world hunger?
In the hierarchy of needs, you need to settle the stomach before you settle some other issues. So yeah, for me, I think world hunger. Yeah, at least let people be able to before
great.
You get.
And that's something that the United Nations is also seeking to deal with their goal that says zero poverty. We're hoping that the world comes to a place where people can think clearly. It's not from a place of an empty belly.
Yes.
Now, poetry comes from inside. Poetry is a language of love and a language of memories. How would you say that poetry speaks to you As a poet, you use your words to heal other people. What does it do to you as a poet?
For me, it's first and foremost a form of self-expression. For me, then of course, a sense of escape, from the pressure of life, and a sense of sharing your thoughts on issues, with other people. So it's first an expression of self, just normally, then it grows beyond that to sharing your thoughts, sharing your wisdom, sharing how you see your world with people. And of course, sometimes you do that and you find out people really connect with your thought and where you're coming from. So they're like, oh, wow, I connected with that poem you wrote, or I connected with what you said. So yeah, it's first self-expression, then of course communicating and connecting with humanity.
It's why when we're in like a gathering and poets are performing and can relate to what they're saying, everybody's doing like
snap. Yeah.
Let's talk about you and your journey through poetry. Some people talk about finding poetry when they're much younger. I mean, back in the day, I was having a conversation with you off camera of being a poet. We were never pursuing it, Would you say that is something that can be learned, or it's a skill that you have to be born with?
It's both ways. You're right. It can be learned, and you can be born with it. So, but again, if you were born with a skill and you don't groom it, by learning what the skill is all about, like really knowing the rudiments of that skill, you might not exactly improve. So yeah, learned, great. It comes to you as a talent, also great. So it will be better and perfect if you have it as a talent, then of course you learn it. So everything just comes together and you become a master in that craft. So
great. And how much influence would you say poetry is having on the continent? We having more conversations that are involving poets. Is the world listening? Is Africa listening to poets?
Africa is listening to poetry. Trust me. There's an opening right now. The AU, it's clocking 20, I think. And there's an opening for 5 poets from Africa to put together like a compendium of writings concerning the continent, in that regard. So yeah, if the AU recognizes that you need poets to put together something for that anniversary, then you should know that Africa is listening. And there are a lot of amazing festivals and workshops and fellowships that are going around, happening around the country at different spots. I would like to say, and I would like to believe that, the world is listening and Africa is listening to poets from Africa.
Great. Yeah. In 5 seconds, if you could pick one poet to do a collaboration with, who would that be?
Ooh, 5 seconds. That question, I didn't expect that question.
Okay.
Who would that be?
All right.
That would be Tade Padiola, my mentor. I love him.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bash, for joining us this morning on the show, and thank you for
me.
blessing us with your talent.
Thank you.